Assalamu alaikum to all of you. It's me, Suleiman Ben Sware, coming on Facebook Live again. Today is Tuesday, the 25th of January 2022. The time is just gone 24 minutes past 3 in the afternoon in Birmingham, England. If you just bear me a minute, let me share this video and we can start the program. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. The program is about to discuss the state of affairs in Fonyi, state of affairs in the Gambia, but mainly what's going on in the last 24 hours in Fonyi. The MFDC rebels allegedly involved in a firefight with Senegalese soldiers within the territory of the Gambia, which is in Buyam environment. And the importance of these discussions are very huge because there's a deafening silence coming from the Gambia government. And Senegalese president have made reports. And Gambians should think about this. If something is happening in the Gambia and our government is silent and Senegalese government are making statements, regardless that the victims so far, and I will not even say the death involves Senegalese citizens, the death, but the victims are Gambians as well, because of the tranquility, peace and tranquility of the Gambian people are disturbed. And the incident have a potential to post instability in the country. Now, the Gambian government failed to address, Senegal is addressing the situation. This is a control of narrative. Are we a sovereign nation? Do we have a functional government? This is what we ask ourselves. But we'll get to that. Just to give you situation, reports on this is coming out with contradicting reports from Senegal, from 𝐴COMIC, from other sources are conflicted. From yesterday we had this report and people were contacting to verify. We could not share what we came across. We just said there's something happening. We don't have the details because we wanted the authorities to assist and come out. We gave them the space to do that, but it's gone 24 hours. The speculation is going on and now it's growing. Some people are trying to exploit the situation, insinuating things that might not have happened, and this might cause instability. That's why I said I'll come out to give my opinion and reassurance to help to control this narrative. The contradictions are here, but what we knew, what we've been reported, as we can see as facts now, because it's been reported by Senegal and other sources. A vehicle came from Casamance, Senegal, with locks, timber locks, and the Senegalese forces within the Gambia chased this vehicle, and this vehicle turned around and went back into Casamance territory, Senegalese territory, and went through an area where the rebels were present and a fight, and so that's how it happened. But it had a spillover. The fighting came into the rebels, people I call criminals for that matter, came into Gambian territory. And people were claiming that they took over certain villages, territory, whatever it is, that's what they claim. That's why we're waiting. I'm not going to take that claim as a fact. We're waiting for Gambian government to reassure us this. But they, whatever it is, they were within Gambian territory fighting with Senegalese troops. I am emphasizing on Senegalese troops. I'll give a difference, ethnic and Senegalese troops. There was a fight in there. Reports are coming out conflicting. 1 or 2 Senegalese soldiers dead, and 1 rebel died and 2 captured. These are reports going out there. Now we haven't got the official from the Gambian authority. Yes, we have the official from Senegalese authority. We have papers reporting. We have WhatsApp audios going up. But this is just scary. In a sense, a government, as a sovereign nation, is not addressing what is happening in the country. But the conflicting report too is, people are reporting ___ involved. I have seen a statement from __, which is subscribed to be __. I cannot even verify whether it's __, but statement about this incident. But what I want Gambians to remember is, during 2017, when that incident happened in Fonyi, Buyam, and Kanilai environment with the villagers and the Senegalese forces, the __, spokesperson came out to clarify that the incident was between Senegalese contingent based in the Gambia, in the Fonyi. That contingent are not part of the __, mission. They are not under the __, command. They are under a separate command, under Senegalese command. Later we have clarification somewhere, I cannot remember whether from government or not, that yes, the Senegalese are there under a bilateral agreement. When I pose this question, and I tag 𝐾𝐽 because of he is very active and he have knowledge about the business in Parliament, I tag 𝐾𝐽 to verify if this agreement was ratified in Parliament. 𝐾𝐽 came back to say no. The minister said that it was between the 2 head of states. That's what we heard, that this agreement was between 2 head of states. It was not ratified by Parliament. Then the Gambian people were not even put in the know. We just saw the presence of __, and most people assume that the presence of Senegalese troops in the Gambia are under the __, mission. They are not. Until they bring out another clarification, officially, that's what we heard from __. If ___ come out again, addressing this incident, then this is why I'm saying that we are having conflicted information coming out, and the incompetency of this government and the recklessness of this government is posing a risk to our national security. This is a major threat. We should have had reports yesterday. The minute it happened, reassurance and updated And whatever finalized today, we should have known. But nothing from the Gambia government. I have seen a report by the Standard saying that they contacted the spokesperson of the government. And he said he didn't know nothing about it. Now, that's the situation. It's conflicting reports. It's chaotic. We don't know because we are not informed by our government. There are conflicting reports coming from different angles. Even the Senegalese government are conflicting some of the reports sent by other papers. We are not reassured. But what we know is the fact the MFDC are involved in a criminal act by involved in logging. We'll explore that. What we know as fact, there's fighting that happened from the Senegalese territory in Casamance, and it spilled over to the Gambia. And it involves soldiers from Senegal who are stationed based in the Gambia based on the agreement between two presidents. These are the facts we know. But the threat here, first, is the failure of communication. In every organization, communication is the most important part. You cannot do anything without communication, especially in security. Because what it does, it's many. Communication to establish protocols that will avoid, the structures you build, anything you do, the capacity you acquire, you build, everything would be communicated, will be based on communication. The networks you build are based on communication. The operations you do are based on communication. And when these things happen, you need to reassure the public. We need to communicate to avoid a spillover. We need to communicate to avoid people to hijack a narrative, to make it something that it is not, to make it worse than what it is. That's why it's important to communicate. But the failure of this communication is gone to another magnitude, in fact, questioning our sovereignty. Why the Gambia government is not communicating when Senegal are communicating on issues happening in the Gambia. Yes, they have a right to communicate. But in the absence of us not communicating, we are reducing ourselves for not taking responsibility as if we are a region within Senegal. May I say that again? The failure of Gambia government communicating. Senegal have every right to communicate because it involves their citizens, the issue involves territory, involves their resources. But it happened in the Gambia. The Gambia government, or it trains people, the sovereign people, to communicate and for their security. We don't even know what role the Gambian National Army played. What we know, they are present, but we don't even know the role. This failure again of what is happening. And about this miscommunication, the state of affairs, let's talk about the state of disturbance first. I call them criminals. They are a bunch of criminals. The state of disturbance. The Senegalese, the Casamance rebellion have been going since the early 80s. Some people can even say late 70s to the early 80s. But we can date it to early 80s. Major incidents have happened. And it's a historical issue with Casamance. But there's a lot of progress from the main factions that were involved. A lot of settlement have been done between the Senegalese government and the separatist movements. But still, there are clusters of factions still active. But they are not really active militarily. And they are not rebels as in the sense of what rebels are. Or what should I say, they are not a force that we take them to be. Why did I say this? When we hear rebels, we think of Colombia, we think of other places where rebels have controlled territory, where rebels have governance over territory and others. They haven't. They have not got that. And in the history of crisis and insurgents, something will always come out. The government itself, the Senegalese armed forces itself, have been exaggerating this rebellion for their own interests, in order to push the government to invest more into the armed forces, in order again for the same armed forces to use those investments into corrupt practices. And this is not new. If you study the history of every insurgency, every crisis, every warfare, you find this presence. You find this presence. And this have made people to believe that the 𝐾∑ rebellion have been more than what it is. They have never controlled a territory. They have never governed a territory. And it has reduced so much. They now concentrated in certain areas, and about 8 months ago or 10 months ago, most of the strongholds in the other parts by the Bissau area have been flushed out. Now, understanding what have happened, we have remnants within the Gambia borders, but you'll be surprised. If you hear these rebel camps, you think it's a camp. You find what settlements, small, makeshift, not even a company size, platoon size, here and there, they call them camps. You think they are structures built or anything, infrastructure built. It's not. It's not. Now, what is fueling this criminality is logging. And it is to the interest of Gambia, not only Gambia, it's interest of the global community to stop this logging. But more so, interest of Gambia and Senegal. Now, if we understand then these are a bunch of criminals now, why did I say this? Senegal have recently held a local government elections within every territory in Senegal, especially Casamance. There's no incident of disturbance. There's no, if the rebels were active, were powerful, they would have disrupt. That's what rebels do. To avoid the central government having control or show of control of sovereignty. But they haven't. Senegal democracy is functional. It's functional in Casamance. Yes, as you have it in the northern part of Senegal, you have it in the eastern part of Senegal, in the southern part of Senegal. There are problems as you have it everywhere else. But the government is in control of what is happening. And the politicians are active. The opposition have won, the majority seats in Casamance. Especially the trouble area. Especially the trouble area, and people have to remember that. It's not the entire of Casamance have the trouble. There's a trouble area of Casamance. Now, if the people have the freedoms, people have the rights, people exercising them, people electing their leaders, electing opposition members to represent them in local government, if they choose to elect anyone as national government, it's their choice. There's no need for a rebellion. If they want to be relevant, let them take the political course. They should not be encouraged. They should not be encouraged. We might have our sentiments, we might have our differences, we may have political opinions against Macky Sall. Against Macky Sall because of some interference of Senegal, but we should not be blinded. We should not be blinded to support this insurgency. It's not to the interest of anybody. It's not the interest of Gambia. It's a criminal enterprise. Now, talking about it's a criminal enterprise, then why is it so still functional? That's where government should take responsibility. Just bear with me. I'll address everything in detail. Government should take responsibility. What is fueling the logging? Now, if the rebels are sustained, how do you fight insurgency? There are many ways you fight insurgency. But the most important, I'll get to that, is winning the hearts and minds of the inhabitants. If anyone want to understand insurgency, go and read Che Guevara in Africa. The experience of Che Guevara in Africa. Go and read the experience of Che Guevara in Bolivia. Why did Che Guevara fail in Africa? Why did Che Guevara fail in Bolivia? Yes, the Cuban did a lot in Africa. But why did it fail? It's the understanding of insurgency. How it relates to people. How do you sell it to people? How do you win the hearts and minds? Whether the people are ready for that. Senegalese are not ready for that. Senegalese have the freedom to express themselves, to change governments, to change administrations. That's the root. Now, why is it happening in the Gambia? Why this logging problem then? The criminality, it's not only by the rebels. The rebels, what they do, control a part of the forest to issue out license or whatever you call them for criminal to log and sell to middlemen, and those people bring it into Gambia and it's sell in the open. Why those logs are sold in the open? And those logs are exported from our ports in the open. Now, if we want to stop this criminality, we have to stop the source, the resources that encourage them to continue the criminality. The rebels are not advancing. They are not holding ground. They are not winning over. They are not doing anything. But they are maintaining the status quo, creating wealth for themselves, making the life of the people they proclaim to defend or to empower. It's lies. Now, why is the Gambia government not fighting this? You will find out that. Go and check the companies exporting wood from the Gambia. You remember the company Woodside or something like that. You know, most of those people now are embedded with Barrow. That's what they do, just like when they were working with Yahya Jammeh. The Romanians, Romanian business people, the same people that were controlling Ozone Bay and other investments. I forgot the name of the company, Woodside or something like that. They are the same people exporting, and Chinese people exporting. And go and find out who are the partners of these Chinese people. They are the same people that are with these politicians, supporting these politicians in the Gambia. They are exported from the Gambia. We all know the Gambia government, forestry, and everybody know that we don't have the wood. The amount, go and find out the export. Amount of wood exported from the Gambia compared to even Senegal or other countries. You'll be surprised. Everything is coming out from Casamance. And it's going to harm our environment. We have the same environment, shared environment with Senegal and Casamance. Casamance in Senegal. If the Casamance is deforested, Gambia is deforested. It's not our interest. They are paying peanuts for these woods to rebels and other actors. These resources should be managed better. This is where the two governments should work from, start from. These two governments should work from here. There shouldn't be a trunk of tree exported from the Gambia without being certified for every level. How difficult is that? None. If you de-incentivize the trafficking of logs, I'll tell you, you are cutting off the head of these criminals called rebels. If you de-incentivize by having a mechanism to make sure that no wood is exported from our ports that is not certified to be sustainable or from lawful areas. That's why we should start from. Then what I'm trying to say that the rebellion is a rebellion. They are not rebels. They are a bunch of criminals, and we should get rid of them. And both governments should work to get rid of them. But I will explain how that can be militarily. But before militarily, there are other measures we take. An insurgency, it's not won by military force alone. America would have conquered the war. They lost everywhere they've been. They lost in Afghanistan. They lost in Iraq. They lost in Vietnam and other places because insurgency it is. Hearts and minds of the people. Che Guevara failed in Africa, in Bolivia, hearts and minds. Che Guevara and Fidel, they succeeded in Cuba, winning hearts and minds. The English succeeded in Yemen in that time, hearts and minds, intelligence. The English succeeded in Singapore. I mean, Malaysia, Singapore, hearts and minds. The British succeeded in the other these things because hearts and minds. It's not the only military power, and we should think about this. Now, let's talk about the presence of Senegalese troops in this in that part of the Gambia. What should be in place? What's the role of the Gambian armed forces? Why the mistrust? The professionalism of the Gambian armed forces. These are the things we need to talk about. Now, let's think about this. Gambia, we should be very careful. We should be very careful. Recently, there's a problem within this the government of Guinea-Bissau, brought about by what? Macky Sall and the president of Guinea-Bissau, Mbalo, signing an agreement without parliament knowing, in secret. The minute it came clear to civil society in Guinea-Bissau and parliament, and the president denied even the existence of that agreement, and the agreement was on what? Resource sharing of the oil wealth within their boundaries. The previous government, before Mbalo, have built up a task force to, like a commission to look into how they're going to negotiate this with Senegal. But Mbalo get hijacked by Macky Sall and they signed an agreement. And now, this is part of other things. This is destabilizing this government in Guinea-Bissau. Now we understand that this agreement of Senegal is present in, let's just make this clear, I'm not talking about economic, I'm talking about the Senegalese presence in Buyam is between the two head of states, it's not by parliament in agreement. But not only by parliament agreement, how did they come to agree? What role did we, the security, what role is the security helping the Gambia or Senegal? It's not. And that's where we should be very careful. As a sovereign nation, as I said, we should be very careful that Macky Sall is not actually entirely looking for the interests of Senegal. And we Gambians should be very careful. Our nationalistic instincts not push us to have a problem with Senegal. We should understand how politicians operate. Macky Sall is doing a lot of things with criminals around him that entrench him politically. And Macky Sall is doing a lot of things with the interest and influence of the French. It's not to the entirety interest of Senegal. The entirety interest of Senegal is a mutual benefit to both nations, Gambia and Senegal. And to leave it to the Gambian people and Senegalese people to work together for future integration, but not one-sided. Not take an opportunity because your neighbor is perceived weak, because of your neighbor at that time is disorganized, and you taking advantage of that neighborhoodness. This is not the interest of Senegal. Yes, it's not the interest of the Gambia, but it's for us Gambians. For us Gambians. That's why we emphasize on electing the right people in office, because end of the day they represent our interests. It's for us Gambians to ensure that we elect the right people that will appoint the right people in order our interests to be safeguarded. Now, the interest have not seen, and I am talking on authority here, I don't have to carry the rank. I understand insurgency as any good soldier would, or any good commander would. Now, there is no tactical advantage. In fact, it is dumb to station troops within Buyam to say that you are defending an insurgency happening in Senegal. It's dumb. Because what we have what we call forward operational base. You cannot have a forward operational base behind the lines of rebels. No. We have a forward operational base. We have a rear operational base. Now, Senegal cannot bring soldiers inside the Gambia as their forward operational base. Remember, it's not a conventional warfare. It's a guerrilla warfare. Remember, it's an insurgency. An insurgency is about winning the hearts and minds of the people. The social relationship is more important in winning an insurgent. The mindset of the people, winning the hearts and minds of the people, is the most important instrument in winning the operation. And this is based on two things: intelligence, information, intelligence. Now, the biggest Senegal can do is to continue the work they did to get the rebels where they got them now, to bring a bunch of criminals. And this bunch of criminals can be finished by doing a lot of other things rather than the force of the military force. As I said, to cut off the resources. We all see, first thing you do is cut off the resources. How do they get their resources? Timber logging. There are mechanisms you can put in the Gambia, work with the Gambian government to ensure these people will be starved of resources. We all know that some of these bandits have relationship with us because of the countries are interrelated. But without government intentionally empowering them, they cannot be empowered. Then what government have to do is work with these communities in order to make these communities jealous of their peace and tranquility, to ensure that they will understand that these criminals behind the borders should not come in to destabilize our relationship between our communities inside Casamance. We should bring it to community level. That's how we fight insurgency. Bring it down to community level. Let the people in the Gambia be jealous of their peace and tranquility and their progress. That's where you come up with the projects that make people to take ownership of their community, to participate in their community activity, to be jealous of the security of their community. That's where insurgency works. Now, that's one aspect of it. You cut off the resource by stopping export from the Gambia, make it so difficult that hardly nobody would want to even go and buy wood, because if you buy wood, you cannot process it in the Gambia, you cannot sell it openly in the Gambia, you cannot ship it out in the Gambia. I'll tell you one thing, Pam. Two, communities. And if you have that infrastructure there, communities be aware, be sensitized, be empowered, have their projects, have their clinics, have their needs been taken care of, making sure they are productive, they will be jealously protecting this. The next bit is fought with intelligence. The intelligence community within the Gambia, intelligence community within Senegal, to work together to make sure that these criminals are identified. If they come into our territory, they are arrested and processed within the laws of the Gambia. And if anything that they have committed that needed to be extradited, make sure Senegal do a test case in Senegal to determine that this person has committed a crime that warrant us to demand this person from your custody and take him to Senegal. If we have those mechanisms, those protocols clear, I'll tell you, the rebels would think twice. Some of these rebels are victims themselves. They have been manipulated because of the mindset they have. because of mindset. Let us not make this thing bigger than it should be. But because of the failure of this government, we are making this thing bigger than be. Because of Senegal, Macky Sall for that matter, trying to take advantage of the territory of the Gambia, trying to take the advantage of the sovereignty Gambia, and the incompetency of our government, we are risking unlikely to create an instability within our territory. This insurgency has been going on since the First Republic. I took part in the first, as an intelligence officer, as the first counter-insurgency trainings done by the British Army training team. I know that the Gambian soldiers have the knowledge, have the capacity to deal with this issue. But it's all about leadership. If these things happen, Senegalese troops can be within Senegalese territory. They don't have to be. Because once you put them inside the Gambia, what you're doing, you are creating an environment where these criminals would use. And remember, we have other people within the Gambia supporting the dictator, using these incidents to try to destabilize. You're trying to appeal to our emotions. Oh, Gambian territory, this is, yes, we have to be careful. They are blowing some of these things out of proportion. They are using it as a propaganda. They are trying to make phony unique. There's a unity of every region in the Gambia. And I'll come to that. They are exploiting the environment. It's fertile. They're making it fertile for insurgencies. We should not allow that. A responsible government should not allow that. Citizens should not allow that. That's why we should be very measured. When I know the emotions will be raw when we hear certain things or see certain things, but be very careful not to be carried away and this to spill over to other things. We should be very careful. Our political affiliations, our political thinking, our anger for interference of Macky Sall's or the control over Barrow and everything else should be measured. We should not allow to be destabilized. With our security intact, with our stability intact, we can change. We are capable of bringing about change. It might not be as swift as we want, but gradually we can convince each other, with educating each other, interacting, be patient, be tolerant, we can bring about change and meaningful change. A violence-based means of change would not guarantee anything. We might be worse off. And there are other geopolitical implications I don't want to get into. It might be distraction. But we'll talk about geopolitics soon. Now, what we think about here is the Senegalese to stay within Senegalese territory. They have their forward operational base. What a forward operational base does, you have observation points to observe. And now Senegal is so advanced, they have their drones. They don't even need to put their troops at risk to send the drones to do the reconnaissance patrols. Then the only patrol Senegals will involve themselves would be the fighting patrol. And the fighting patrol for Senegalese troops, they are equipped, they are better stand up. Because they would have the benefit of the drones, giving them the intelligence, showing the infrastructure, showing the composer, showing them everything, that the capacity of the rebels. And when they venture out, they will be going out with a force which is superior to the rebels, and they will avoid the ambushes or anything else put before them. One. Then the Senegalese makes more sense for them to have a forward operational base in Senegal than in the Gambia. In the Gambia, they will be adding into making the ground fertile for these criminals and the other agitators in order to agitate a state of affairs which it should not be. Remember, I talked about the other mechanisms that needed to be done. I'll come back to that a bit. Now, if they have their forward operational base, they have their observation points. Now, I tell you, observation points, they don't even have to be manned observation points. There are drones, technology to do that for them. They have it. And with the other work they do in their counterintelligence, they will do that. They can do their patrols and flush them. Then the Gambian soldiers can be held responsible to protect our territory within the boundaries that we've perceived to be vulnerable to this insurgency. By the share of information between the Senegalese and the Gambian troops, we can contain these people and get rid of them. And remember, once you put the order mechanism in place, you have stopped their resources through to the timber being cut, sales cut off to Gambia. You have put up a community approach by empowering the people within the Gambia to make them jealous of their environment, their peace and tranquility. To operate together. You are winning the hearts and minds of the inhabitants. You are building what you get from there. You have intelligence, because if they see a strange person, even if they know their family member involved in anything strange, anything that is not progressive, they will report, because they will be reassured by the government doing things the right way. That's why I said even our extradition policy should be very clear with Senegal, that we don't only extradite on friendly visits. We should make sure that there are test cases in Senegal itself or in the Gambia to determine. You see, these things will help law and order. The police would be active within there. Police would have intelligence to support. The intelligence agents will have, and this thing will be quite off. Now, the other bit is _Fonyi. This is another failure we have from our government. You see, as I said, every community is important. But you know, when you govern, at times there are things you give priority. You don't give priority. It's just like when you have a family. At times there's a family member you give priority. Not that you love him or her more than the others. Probably in the interest of the family, they needed extra support. They needed extra attention than the others. In the case of Gambia, if you look at the way the dictatorship was run, then you will understand the importance of giving priority and giving attention to Fonyi. And part of what the government reforms should have done, and part of what the government reforms, reconciliation, whatever they call them, should have done, was to pacify and take out this mechanism developed by the dictatorship. You see, I don't want to go far, but the dictator had a philosophy that he was trying to blow the line between the boundaries of the Gambia and Casamance to strengthen his support base, to use Senegal, Casamance as a drop back, and use Casamance not as a drop back, to use Casamance as a proxy. And he had used Casamance as a proxy, and he wanted to use Casamance as a drop back. And not only Casamance, to the extent of Guinea-Bissau. That's why he was more interested in this rebellion. Not that he cared about the people in Casamance or anything else. It was for his selfish reason. And not only selfish reason, for his madness in believing in ancient history, thinking that he can recreate ancient history where he would be the king. He would be the king to control this territory and influence this territory. We all know that he was involved in Casamance. We all know that he was involved in Guinea-Bissau, just as he was involved in other conflicts in Africa, but for his interests. But in the case of Casamance and Guinea-Bissau, the important part was for his survival and his interest. Now, as a government, when we came into power, these are areas. You know, when you do a risk assessment, as a government, you look at the threats. This is something that should have been identified. How do we pacify and get the mechanism built by this dictator to try to make turn Fonyi to victims of unique victims of the rest of the Gambia, trying to separate Fonyi from us. This is what you hear of Fonyi in a way that you think Fonyi is not Gambia. when we don't refer to other regions in that manner. It's not our doing, it's the doing of the dictatorship. But our failure is 5 years not ratifying this. And I said this before. Where we fail, or this government failed, is understanding national security. And you know, when you empower Fonyi, and Fonyi is a strategic location that Gambia should prioritize in order to power the rest of the country. You see, Fonyi will serve as what we call in the Midlands in UK, because it will help the decentralization programs in order to reach to other areas, because everything was concentrated in the Combo, apart from using the river. And if you use the river too, you have to go through Fonyi, the infrastructure that is needed in the Fonyi to bridge between the North Bank and the South Bank, in fact, would have been built in Fonyi, and other things. You see, that's where our development strategy should have been gone. But this is just to talk about for the stability of the country. From what happened during the dictatorship. We all have seen the tension that ensued after we took out the dictator, because that's what he did, and make people to believe that this is his background, this is his base, this is this people and everything, and just change a narrative, and Gambians accepted that narrative. And and many Gambians would go and make statements which are, offensive to entire people from Fonyi. And most Gambians don't, because most Gambians don't know any other region apart from they came from. Most people in Combo don't know anything after Birkama. Even now it's better. Some people from North Bank don't know about the South Bank. Some people from the South Bank don't know about the North Bank. Now we make statements and allow the statements to go, not understanding what the relationship, and thinking that they don't understand how this, how we all are, together. Now this was dangerous. Now, the same infrastructures the dictator used could have been turned around against him in order to get control as Gambian people together. For instance, he built that big mansion. No government is going to take that mansion. Who's going to buy that mansion? Nobody's going to buy that mansion. But that mansion could have been turned over into a project that served the interest of the entire Gambia, but directly, affecting the, impacting on the life of the people in Fonyi. That mansion plus the ecology or whatever it is could have been turned into a tourism project. The college that was there could be turned into agricultural and hospitality project. And Gambians who come from different walk of life to study and live in Fonyi. What better reconciliation that is? The land is there already that he acquired. Infrastructure was built in that land for agriculture. Now the students been trained for agriculture and whatever could have utilized that land. The tourism, infrastructure, the zoo and everything should have been used. But in a way and manner, the ownership, not only about national, the ownership the local can take pride in. And they will jealously protect this and be their own. Now that would have exposed the dictator for what he is, saying that the new government or the government today, it's your government, it's not the individual. This person was doing this as an individual, everything was about him, but this is about us. And similar projects, as I said, you look after giving attention to our child doesn't mean that you love the other children less. Every region in that country, there's something that the dictator have taken from them. There are land over, agricultural land and other infrastructure taken over from them. We convert all that to community property rather than selling the property to themselves, politicians, Amadba and others. The properties sold in Banjul could have been turned into community projects. And the entire country, this would have been a very meaningful way. But let's come back to Fonyi. You see, in that manner, the incident, these things would not have been talked about. But right now, what did they do? They went into Fonyi with politics. They used their expired generals, they used and blow the blow the, these things, continue to divide the communities more. APRC, Yaya Jame, APRC, Farbaka, Tombong, this, that's all they did. Because they never wanted a reform. They never wanted to unify the people. They never wanted to empower the people. They went and took, properties and shared it among themselves. Where is the proceeds of that property? Did it go to the National Treasury? Did it go to the people? No. Did it impact anything? No. Where did agricultural mechanism, machines and everything else all went to themselves? And this is corruption. Corruption always is the backbone of our problems. Now, the other bit is the professionalism of the Gambia Armed Forces. I don't doubt the professionalism of Gambia Armed Forces. I have seen the training. Recently, 2 contingents have been trained in Turkey for as a quick reaction force. I spoke to people. I heard about the training. The curriculum they had. It's top notch there, and Gambians have been going out in the peacekeeping. There's right now everywhere, serving and coming back, professionally coming back, been commended by nations, international community. Why they are not given their responsibility? But again, it's the failure of reforms. That's why we have to hold this government accountable again. Failure of reforms. Look, there's mistrust. For 5 years, why there's mistrust? That's a failure. You are given a mandate for 5 years to do these things, reform the armed forces, do this, do that. Why do we think it's failure? Look, I'll tell you. There might be individuals, but even those individuals that we perceive, I'm not saying perceived. Look, you'll be surprised that if the right approach was used for reforms, the metrics were put in, you'll be surprised what would have come out. But the failure of this government is failure to reform the armed forces. Now it's giving cause for concern. And rightly so. Rightly so. I will never ask for 𝐴COMIC to leave because I don't like the presence of 𝐴COMIC. It's not responsible. But if I was given opportunity, or a government and had the opportunity, the government should carry out their assessment to ensure, because these things are achievable. Right now, I don't think they've done it right. I don't think we are in the right footing. But any government could have done that in 6 months to ascertain that the risk factors within the armed forces is taken out. You see, people perceive, thinking that the risk is only in the armed forces. No, they may over-risk in governance. Security is about governance. Armed forces, soldiers are just a factor. You see, the corruption is likely to cause anything. The soldiers dare not. Soldiers don't come out and do things without reasons, advance for that. Who give them the reasons they advance? The government, the politicians. When we talk about geopolitics, I'll touch on that more. I don't want to distract here. But what we're trying to say here, vast majority of the Gambian army should be trusted. What we fear is because we have not done the assessment right, we have not put metrics. You see, if you put the metrics right, the results that comes out, you have confidence out of them. Because it's a competent way of assessing. Putting things through in the outcome you'll be confident of. But the president cannot be confident of this because he have not got the right people around him that advise him on security, right people to deal with security, because most of them are either incompetent or they are conflicted. Conflicted because they were part of the bad system. Now they are in fact not doing good, disservice to the good servicemen in the police or in the army, armed forces. This should not have happened. 5 years you could not. There's no open conflict. 5 years you could not. Then the government have failed on that. Then, as I said, I believe the professionalism of the Gambia Armed Forces could have dealt with that. And I'll tell you, the equipment level, the training level, and everything else, what the government should ensure whether they have the right leadership in the army. And there are individuals in there who can assume the leadership. But as I said, you have to put these two reforms to a metrics to determine the leadership quality, to determine the minds, and the reform programs would inform the mindset of the Gambian soldiers to be nationalistic and control. Then the rest of the things is the government doing what? Good governance and rule of law. And there's no soldier that's mad enough to try something, then the people would even come out to tell him no. But what happened now is soldiers try anything, they know that the people in fact are calling out for them to do it. Do you believe it that or not? That's why it's always successful. Any coup d'etat that is successful because of three reasons. The people that carry it out know what they're doing. 2, they have popular support. 3, there is strategic, geopolitical environment that encourage it. And all these things are present now in West Africa. That's why you're seeing this coup d'etat happening. And they are going to, we are going back to the days of coup d'etat. Because of the Cold War. I said this, and I'll talk about geopolitics and the Cold War. The Cold War is back. You see, that's why I said the presence of the geopolitics. You have to understand that one thing before, let's say it's in the later in the early millennium, you have Russia was out of game, China was out of game technically, only Taiwan was in game that can give money. And then the World Bank, IMF, America, EU have a monopoly of controlling finance. And they can sanction you and all the things, and incentive was in there. But now you have China, you have Russia, you have Turkey, you have India, and you'll be surprised. You have criminals, cartels. Cartels are ready to sponsor a regime change in order to control those countries. You have Islamist insurgencies that undermines the stability of countries, which those things did not happen before. That's why we should understand the geopolitics. And to understand, look, we should not desire change by violence means at all. Coup d'etat is never a solution. Violence is never a solution. You cannot control the outcome of that. But if we are not lazy, we can engage, educate, be tolerant, and in order to bring our change and be the useful change. But we'll talk about those things again. Now, let's just wrap up here. The incidence factor that is fueled is the crisis, and there's a the spillover issue here. But we have a mission creep. Economic have a mission creep. These are factors we need to understand. But our main failure is governance. The entire failure here is governance. This should not have happened. This could be contained. We can eradicate these bandits from their hideouts. I don't want to even give them the glory of calling them rebels. Rebels, they do have a cause. They don't have a cause. They are bandits. They are bandits. They are irresponsible bandits. The the Casamance rebellion have evolved to other things now. Now, Casamance have more opportunities, citizens, priorities. A lot of things have changed. And we all saw what happened to the elections. Then they have a means to challenge their grievances, not to destabilize. What they're doing is a criminal activity. They're taking the resources that is jointly owned by the entire world, especially in Senegal, or owned by Senegal, because if Casamance is deforested, it's going to affect our the climate change, and the climate change we all share, but it's going to affect us directly, Gambia. Wind pollution, lack of rain, erosions, and other things will happen. The resources would be taken. They are not sustainably managed. What happens is the money that goes to all these criminals, not much even. Go and check the price of rosewood in China or in the world market. and see how much it costs for them to take it out of the country. The little bit of what is impacting our economy can be negative. We should count that as negative, because in the long run it's not sustainable, and this thing can be stopped. And I said there are mechanisms government should do, but not to keep quiet about these things. We can fight an insurgency, but insurgencies are not fought by military means alone. The resources that goes to the insurgency should be cut off, and it's easy to do by controlling the selling points. If you disincentivize that they cannot go out there to bring it into Gambia, you don't have to chase them in the forest. Shut the shop up. Any trading place in Serekunda or anywhere else, make sure the laws are clear, that anybody found with any log of wood without the certification to justify the sustainability of sourcing of that, you serve in prison, not a fine, imprisonment. See how many shops would close, and then we will find an alternative to source our wood. If we say that the same thing at the ports, see who is going to export it? Nobody. Now, if the demand is not there, the insurgents will start to lack, fail. They are not selling charcoal, they are not selling the wood, because of we are strangling them by force. Communities need to be empowered in both areas. It's about insurgency, about winning the hearts and minds of the people. As I said, you can go and read about insurgencies. These things are needed to be done. Phony should be a priority, not that they're better than us. No, it's just like they need the attention because of the destruction done by the dictator. In playing with our mindsets and playing Gambians, in this divide and rule, we should bridge that gap. And one way of doing that is empowering Fonyi. But the same way we empower Fonyi, giving them as priority, as a template, would have to go to every community. It's possible. The money is there. The resources are there. The billions been stolen from the COVID and everywhere else could be invested. You know, and any dollars invested in these communities are other dollars coming out. We are going to save in hospital bills. We are going to save in accidents. We are going to save in robbery. We are going to save in crime. We're going to save a lot. But unless and until we have a good governance, this thing will happen. But again, another point we have to reiterate is, let us be very careful. I don't believe. I've done a write-up. I've done a security risk assessment. I've done national security assessment on the Gambia and Senegal relationship. I've done an investigation, and I'll tell you, generally what is happening, it's not to the interest of Senegal. Yes, at present we can just see it as interest of Senegalese are doing this. It's Macky Sall, certain criminals around him that are doing. If you know the damage Macky Sall is doing to Senegalese economy itself by empowering certain criminals in Senegal, empowering French companies and its other interests in Senegal, which is not to the interest of Senegalese, then you start to understand that we should be very careful as people not to take everything that Senegalese government do as that the Senegalese people are in support of. No, the Senegalese people have shown their rejections from these elections and other things they do against Senegalese government. We have seen their people come out and demonstrate against Macky Sall. For God's sakes, let us be very careful. I know our sentiments, nationalistic sentiments do go up, but let us be smart enough. That's why we need to have these conversations. What our governments do, as people, we should hold them responsible for that. We are responsible for holding our government accountable to ensure we have a level playing field when we deal with Senegal. That's why we need to elect the right government that will appoint the people that have the capacity, the mindset to deal with business with Senegal and other countries. We don't blame Senegal for that. We blame ourselves for that. Because as I said, the interest of Senegal should be a mutual. And the integration between these two countries should be left to the people of Gambia and Senegal to decide. Should not be micromanaged in a way that will be so politicized and resistance will happen. This is what is happening. This resistance or later part secession fighting and everything will happen. Gambia Africa is our interest for regional integration, but we have to make sure it evolves. We have to make sure it is done right. We have to make sure it comes from people. It's not micromanaged in a way that we will end up disintegrating later on or fight against each other or anything else. But don't be fooled. Don't be afraid to speak up. But speak up sensibly. Don't be seen as, oh, if you speak up, they will see me as anti-Senegalese. No. Because if you have a reasonable opinion and you don't speak that reasonable opinion, what is happening? We have people deliberately, I am seeing lots of messages coming and I don't share them, I disregard them. Trying to use this incident and other incidents that Senegalese, happen with Senegalese in order to destabilize us. We should not allow that. Let's hold government responsible and do this. And as I said, the government lack of silence, and Senegal President talking is like Gambia are represented by Macky Sall. This is what the government is doing. This is the damage the government is doing. That's why at times you cannot blame some people coming out. It's coming out from a good place. That, look, we are a region of Senegal, Gambia, Senegal is doing this. No, Senegal is not doing that. Senegal are looking at their strategic interests, but we should look at strategic interests. Yes, it's true, Senegal should not take advantage of because of we have someone not capable, but who elected him or who supported him or who keep on doing this, who is not holding him accountable, we should do that. Thank you very much, guys. Tomorrow I'm coming on Gunjur Online with my brother Ibrahima Jane, and we're going to talk the youth forum. We're going to talk about a lot of issues we cover. Then I'll find time Thursday or Friday talk about 2 different issues. I want to explore about this geopolitics, the coup d'etats going on in West Africa, what the results in Senegal mean for Gambia, and other things. Thank you very much and have a good day. Thank you.